Hi everyone, welcome back to Parashat Pantry. This week we will be focusing on a double portion when two portions fall together on the calendar. This portion is called Vayakhel-Pekudei. And in this portion we see the final construction of the tabernacle, the space that the Israelites build in order to connect to God, and it's a place that God will come to inhabit. At the very end of the portion, chapter 40, verse 33 through 38, we hear that when Moses is finished building the tabernacle, the cloud, He-Anan, covers the tent of meeting, and the presence of God fills the tabernacle. So we know this cloud to be God's presence. It's really a beautiful moment when we see the work of human beings complete, and Moses, the Israelites, are able to step back from their work and to make space for God to appear, for God to be present. It's a reminder that often we don't experience the divine until we are able to take a moment and step back. I think it's also a reminder that God often fills our being or becomes present for us after we complete holy work. Let us also not forget that the tabernacle in the Torah is a temporary structure. It's also portable. So it's a constant journey of moving and rebuilding, finishing the work, and then letting God fill the space. So what a wonderful reminder that God can be present over and over again for us if we will it and if we make that happen. So the last thing I want to say before we get to our baking for today is that this is the very last portion of the book of Exodus. And we have a tradition, a saying that we repeat when we finish a book of Torah and move on to the next. In this case, finishing Exodus and moving on to Leviticus. We say, Chazak, Chazak, Venit Chazek. Be strong, and may we be strengthened together. So we have made it through a full 2 books of Torah together through these months of Parashat Pantry, and that really fills me up, especially with a divine feeling. So we're going to make another dessert today that reminds me of the cloud of God's presence, and it's also a great recipe for Passover. Never too early to start preparing for Passover. So we are going to make vanilla meringues sprinkled with some chocolate chips. And we don't need very many ingredients. You might have them all in the pantry or the fridge already. We need to separate 4 egg whites. That should be room temperature. It's very important. We need salt, cream of tartar, vanilla extract, sugar, and I'm going to add some chocolate chips. So I'm going to get busy separating the eggs, and I'm going to set a bowl aside so that I can keep the egg yolks, use them for something else. So into my stand mixer go the egg whites. There's one. It's really important not to get even a little ounce of yolk in there. You just want pure egg whites. Three. And the last one. And to the mixing bowl, I'm then going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt comes next. First, I'm going to wash my hands though. So a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar as well. And this is what is going to help make the peaks stiff that we're going to whip. And we're going to add some vanilla too, a tablespoon of pure vanilla extract. You can do any kind of extract, really. And we are going to beat them on high speed until some soft peaks form. I'm going to start to slow it down so that I can see when I lift up the whisk if a mountain or a peak will form in the egg white. I'm going to do a little bit more. Okay, so when I lift it up, the egg white mixture stays exactly where it is, which is perfect. So now I'm going to mix in 1 1/4 cup of sugar, a little bit at a time, and we're going to go back to beating this on high until stiff peaks form. This might take up to 5 minutes. So it's looking really good. Actually, pretty perfect. But I am just going to scrape the edges down just to make sure there's no sugar that fell to the bottom or the edges. Look at how stiff this is. We're just going to give it a few more spins. Looks like a big puffy cloud, exactly how we wanted it. All right, so let's take a look. Wow. Look at that perfect stiff cloud. So about a cup of chocolate chips, a little at a time, and we're just going to use the spatula to fold them in. We don't want them to break up the meringues too much. So let's mix in those chocolate chips so they're evenly distributed. Now we're gonna have a little fun. So you can just take a tablespoon and scoop them on to the cookie sheet. I have preheated the oven to 300 degrees. Or if you have a little extra time, you can use a piping bag or a Ziploc. So these are just going to go into the oven 300 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes until they are just slightly golden. And then once they are done, we're going to turn the oven off and leave them in the oven because you don't want to bring them out into the air and like introduce the colder air because they'll crack. But rather if you just turn off the oven and leave them in the oven for another 20 or 30 minutes, let them cool off on their own, they'll do a lot better. So I will take this opportunity to wish you a great week and a week filled with hard work so that we can step back, of course, when Shabbat arrives and let God's presence fill our midst. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
לעשות בדברי תורה, לעשות בדברי תורה. Sweet as honey.